Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody this morning. And if you could, I would ask that you stand and we'll repeat the Lord's Prayer or take a moment of reflection at your choice. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Councillor Cutting, I guess the first thing I'll say is Councillor Cutting won't be with us today. She is at the ERT hearings, I believe. Also, I've heard over the weekend that her mother had fallen and she's back in the hospital again, so we hope for a speedy recovery for her on that. So if she's not at the hearing, she will be at the hospital looking after family, which would be very much more important. I'll ask, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof, on anything on the agenda this morning? Seeing none, if it does arise, it can be declared at any time that it becomes available. Closed session, we have no closed session this morning that we know of right as of yet, being the operative word as of yet. So there'll be no matters arising. Public meetings, we don't have any. Consent agenda. So under the consent, I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by John Eccles. John Travolta Eccles. Be it resolved that items A1 to C1 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted, and further that authorization be given for the actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Yeah, okay. On the agenda, Mark just wanted to, the agenda, it states May 5th, which was a bit of a typo. The resolution does speak to April 21st council minutes. And Don, Councillor Marshall. Yeah,
the recommendation from Committee of the Whole about the parking loading zone downtown, just wonder if we can get that pulled just for a little more conversation on that.
Okay, Councillor Marshall was asked to pull that at the appropriate time, probably when the Director of Public Works, we can bring that one up. Very good. Anything else from the consent? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. There you are, Mark. Okay. So that brings us down to communications from Mayor and Council. While we're having those, is there any communications? Councillor Thompson?
Yes, on this past Saturday, the ATV Club, the West Grey ATV Club, along with some members from the Parks Committee and myself and your worship, were on hand to clean 4 parks within West Grey. We did the parking lot area behind the credit union, the Barney Pond area for the upcoming fish derby, Rock Street, both sides of Lambton, and the Bennick Park on Grey Road 3, where the dedication of landowners that donated that land in 1967 were on hand, and the sign was up there. So the people involved were really appreciative of the nice barbecue that was provided, and they thought it was pretty good that the mayor was there to give a lending hand and help in the rainy, wet day it was. But we managed to take 4 large bins of debris out of there, plus 2 trailer loads from the Bennick area. So that part has started. I understand the firefighters are going to be doing the park behind the fire hall and police station very shortly, and this Saturday, May 10th, is the West Grey areas cleanup on roadsides and so on. So things are looking pretty good, and surprising there wasn't that great amount of trash, more limbs and so on and leaves, but it was pretty good, so.
Very good, thanks, Rob. Councillor Marshall, Don?
Thank you. Just wanted to bring up that I was at the OSM conference last week, and it was a good conference. Some of the issues are, they could be bringing up, in my opinion, they bring up more issues of what's really taking place in the municipality, the asset management. I thought maybe it might have been brought up since it's a pretty big deal right now. But they did have a couple of sessions, one on the staff preparing for retirement of staff, and there's a lot of staff that are getting close to retirement, and they had a good program on succession planning and how you should be preparing for that, so that was a good one. And then the second last thing that was talked about was the affordable policing and how they're trying to adjust amend the cost increases of the policing and the wages and that. And I believe that I heard right that anybody that was negotiating contracts now, they wanted them to kind of back off on that a bit, back off on negotiating them. And Toronto, Kingston, Kawartha Lakes, and one other one, a smaller one. I could. The OPP, the biggest one. And they're going to negotiate the four of them because they're all big, medium, small. They're going to negotiate, and then they're going to try and hit in the cost of living, and then the rest will kind of follow in with that. So I think probably the police board will be taking that back, or somebody will be taking that back to the police board. And I might have misheard too, so thank you.
Thanks, Don. Councillor Mollison. Dave?
Well, Your Worship, on Friday night I attended the Agriculture Society dinner. It was a good representation there, and it was so nice to see that the local government took part in the show. It was really, really excellent.
Johnny, that would be Johnny Travolta.
Yes, he did a marvelous job. She goes to Florida for the winter, and John was sort of contemplating it, but his wife said no. But anyway, it was a good show, an excellent show, and a very good dinner and a good evening, and as I say, it was well represented.
And I don't think that Councillor Eccles, he's not going because he doesn't meet the age requirements. I think he needs to practice a little bit on his dancing. Carol? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you. Just to let you know, we had a very successful spring craft show in Newstead. In spite of the day, when we do have, it is tough getting parking. Somebody came in and told me they had parked in Clifford because there was that many cars. We had 425 through the door. That does not include children 12 and under. They're free. And about 75 crafters who are also buyers. So in total about 500. And speaking to the various vendors, they were very pleased with their day. So it was another successful one. And just for information, Mr. Mayor, I filed my papers this morning for the position of councillor. Very happy to see that you had also done so.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I guess that's, from my point, is my biggest announcement this morning is, as of last week, it was last Tuesday, that I filed my papers for mayor, wanting to represent, asking the people for their support to represent them again for the upcoming term. There's a number of issues out there that we're involved in, of course, and it's always an ongoing thing. But I believe I still have some things to contribute to the municipality and lead us through some of those things for the next 4 years. And I'm certainly putting my name out there to do that for the municipality and for the residents to be their voice as we go forward. And I don't know, I will say it was done on Tuesday. There may have been some questions or concerns or interest as to whether what happened on Friday, what was going to happen then, but whether I would take another run at the provincial, and I can say absolutely not. I've made up my decision was to run for mayor, and one horse can only run in one race at a time, I believe, so that's the way I'm going to leave it at that. I will not be seeking the nomination for the provincial election that's coming up on June the 12th. I'll put my full focus here. And for the biggest reason was that the municipality were represented at a number of judicial hearings, court cases right now with the ministry, and I felt that there was no way making those decisions that we would be fighting in court. The municipality puts me in a conflict of interest, and I will not do that. I'm representing the municipality at putting this forward. So that's what's going to happen with Kevin Eccles in 2014 in the election. I look forward to having the support of the public out there on October the 27th. And congratulations to yourself. And I do understand, Carol, that there may have been somebody else at this table has put their papers in this morning as well too, so we look forward to that. Carol.
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Mayor, having seen that you had filed, it certainly helped me make my decision because you've been an excellent mayor, and I certainly hope you're sitting in that chair next time. And I, like you, I feel I still have something to offer the people. I enjoy what I'm doing. I believe I do a good job for the people. And there are a lot of issues that would be nice to finish off, and I'm glad your name is there.
Well, thank you very much. And on other communications, yes, I was able to get down to the craft show on Saturday. The crafters there were very glad that the weather was the way it was. People weren't out on their lawn. They were coming into the hall, well attended again. And a plug for one other thing in Newstead. There are tickets available from some of the Newstead Lions for Lobster Fest, which is on May 24th in Newstead. So if you want a well-done steak or a night of entertainment, there's steak, crab, and of course lobster at your choice can be bought from those tickets. And the agricultural dinner on Friday night done by the Durham Agricultural Society was very good. The entertainer was excellent, and she picked the right person from council to do the dancing. I'm not so certain about the good looks, but he did have the good knees. Councillor Eccles. John.
It was my pleasure to attend the agricultural dinner. I'm not so sure it was a pleasure to be part of the entertainment. But the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting is tonight at 6 o'clock for anyone who wishes to attend.
Okay, any other communications? And I will be there in their constitution that it states that the mayor has to swear in the executive. So in that capacity, I'll be there, but more in the capacity just to see how the chamber is getting along and their activities over the past year. Be worthwhile going for. So I'll see you there, John. Mr. Bell. Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, yes, you let the cat out of the bag a little bit. I did also file my papers for...
Oh, it was you. I just didn't know who it was.
Yeah, okay. A lot of secrets around this office. Okay. Anyways, I did file my papers for the position of deputy mayor for the upcoming election. I thought it was prudent to do that at this time. And like you more eloquently said than I could, Mr. Mayor, there are still a number of ongoing issues that I think deserve council's attention, and I did want to help in that respect. So it's been wonderful past 4 years serving the public as deputy mayor, and hopefully the public sees fit to support me in that regard at the end of October. So thank you very much for the past support, and look forward to another 4 years.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay. Well, then we will move on. We have a number of delegations this morning. And our first one, Mr. Cook, is here. Roger Cook is the Managing Director for the Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit, better known as SMART. And Roger's come around to give us an update on the activities and a view into the future of SMART. And probably will take any questions that are directed his way. But welcome this morning here, Roger, and I'll let you, did you get that mic turned on?
Yep, it is. I think so.
You are there, very good.
I'm here.
The floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Morning, everyone. I'm happy to wait if you have other delegations you'd like to hear from first. So
No.
I'm good to go.
We'd, you know, be accommodating to you, but as you can see, the other two delegations aren't here, so take your chance when you get it.
Very good. I'll have everyone's attention. Would you like me to read through the presentation, or would you like to?
We've had the presentation. It was in our package, so
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that council has read through it. If you just want to give us the highlights of it and take any questions or
Very
whatnot.
good. We
But
can do that.
Give us an update.
Saugeen Mobility provides safe, dependable transportation solutions to individuals and groups for medical appointments, employment opportunities, shopping, and social outings. These are transportation solutions for the mentally and physically challenged residents of West Grey and the other partner municipalities. Currently, West Grey has 160 registered clients, including Rockwood Terrace. In 2013, clients from West Grey took 1,532 rides. This was up about 31.5% from the 1,165 rides in 2012. To March 31st of this year, clients from West Grey have taken 552 rides, an increase of about 53.3% from 360 rides in the same period in 2013. A ride is defined as one person going from point A to point B. A return trip is 2 rides. Each client may have a companion or attendant ride free of charge. The attendant and companion rides are counted along with the rides for the client. 2013 was a busy and significant year for SMART. Perhaps most significantly, on July the 1st, individual user fees were slashed from $2 plus 80 cents per kilometer with a 680 minimum to $2 plus 30 cents per kilometer with a $5 minimum. This rate reduction has produced an approximately 30% increase in ridership. In early 2013, SMART took delivery of 3 new 9-passenger buses. These buses have folding seats and can hold up to 4 wheelchairs or up to 9 passengers seated. We find this flexible configuration works very well for SMART and helps with our efficiency. In late 2013, SMART took delivery of a new large bus for group outings. This bus can hold up to 14 wheelchairs or up to 30 passengers seated and is equipped with air suspension to provide a more comfortable ride for our clients. It has been very well received by the groups using it. Thus far in 2014 has been very busy for SMART again. Overall ridership is up just over 25%, and user fee revenue is up just under 9% over 2013. Individual ridership has been especially strong and is up 38.2%. In February and March, ridership is up over 50% compared to the year before. January was a tough month for everybody trying to get around, so our ridership was up, but not as, it was up about 9% I think in January, so it wasn't as strong as February and March, but we'll chalk that up to the weather. SMART has taken delivery of 3 additional 9-passenger buses this year, as well as 3 additional MV1 adapted vans. We began service in Chatsworth on April the 1st under a 9-month contract. I will skip down to what West Grey is contributing, if I can find my page here. For 2014, SMART's total municipal contribution has been set at $410,000, of which West Grey's share is $43,594.05, which is up from $33,000 $827.29 in 2013, $36,768 in 2012, $35,789 in 11, and $29,672 in 2010. The continued strong growth of ridership in West Grey will likely result in a higher contribution again next year, since ridership has a 70% weighting when it comes to determining the share that each municipality has of the overall funding. So I think those are basically the specific to West Grey highlights. If there's anything else you'd like me to touch on, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. You've asked for it, so you've opened it up, so don't be shy when the questions come your way. Roger, I was just wondering, you did mention on the fleet, what is the state of the fleet? Are the buses about running out, or are we in pretty good shape as far as the fleet, and what is our overall replacement policies?
Well, we don't have a specific replacement policy. Generally, it is when a vehicle is beyond its useful life, we'll get rid of it. We still have two 2005 small vans and two 2007s. The plan will be to get rid of the 2005s as this year goes on, and the 2007s probably next year. Something like that. As far as the small buses go, the oldest small buses are 2010s, so they're still in great shape. Vehicles in this service, some of them they're on the road a lot, but they're not getting a lot of kilometers, which is kind of strange because they may be staying in a small area. So even though they're busy, the kilometers that go on are they don't seem to go on fast on them. The worst thing for them is to be sitting and not being used. So I like to change the oil, fill the gas, and keep driving, sort of thing, and they last well when you do that. So as far as a replacement policy, we don't really have a specific one. It's replace as needed, sort of thing. So when we're getting rid of vehicles, they're generally pretty well used up. There's not a lot of value left in them. So I hope that answers the question.
Good. And the other thing is the replacement, is that part of the municipal contribution, or where does the funding come from for those capital purchases?
The funding for capital purchases comes from the Provincial Ministry of Transportation Gas Tax for Transit program. As far as the cost of replacing vehicles is expensive. Like they're running $60,000 per small unit. So you're not long spending $200,000 and $300,000 when you're replacing vehicles. So that would have a significant impact on municipal contributions if we were needing money from the municipalities. So no, the province has a I would say really well constructed and really well run funding program for transit services, and that is where we get the money for capital purchases and for operational deficits.
Very good. I'll say that it's not very often we hear that there is a provincial program out there that is effective.
It's not perfect, but it is a good program. Yes, as long as we meet the criteria, which are almost entirely related to exceeding our local revenue baseline. As long as we're exceeding that target and meeting the other criteria that we need to meet for the province, then that money is there and available for the system. As I indicated in the report, it's not a bottomless pit of money. It is the funding that SMART gets is restricted to 75% of its local revenue. I have been speaking to a gentleman at the MTO. There seems to be a growing interest in transportation systems serving smaller municipalities, smaller communities. versus the systems people normally think of, like the TTC or the large urban systems. And I was speaking to this gentleman, and we were discussing population density. And it's my feeling that population density has a direct impact on every municipality's ability to fund and deliver programs. So the lower your population density, when you're receiving funding on a per capita basis, population density has a direct impact on how you are going to fund and deliver those services. So we had a discussion about this, and I indicated to him that my feeling was that the province needed to do something to help transit funding for municipalities or partnerships like this, which have a lower population density. And I suggested that the cap should be lifted, that transit systems like ours should get all of the money they're eligible for with no cap, because smaller municipalities lack the industrial and commercial tax base on which to fund these programs compared to the urban areas. Plus, you also lack the population density that makes providing the service more efficient. We spend a lot of kilometers deadheading to clients all over the 9 municipalities now. So, because the object is to provide the service. So if somebody needs a ride and you need to take a van across Grey or Bruce County to do it, you do it. But that's a lot of deadhead kilometers. So I have had some discussions with Ministry of Transportation people about trying to not so much turn the funding program upside down or redo it, but just to tinker with it a little bit to benefit small municipalities and small systems like this, because we are leaving. We're eligible for a considerable amount more funding than we're getting. And the only way to get that funding is to increase our local revenue. And even though we have slashed our user rates, they're still among the highest in the province. Generally transit systems run around, give or take, $3 a ride as a minimum, or $5 a ride as a minimum, which continues to put SMART certainly in the top quartile, or the most expensive quartile of systems in the province. So it would be nice to get that extra funding. Whether the province will adjust the rules or anything like that to provide it, I don't know, or if we need to find a way to increase local revenue to accomplish that. But that would be very valuable if we could get all the funding we're eligible for, rather than the limit.
I don't know which would be more easily attainable, whether going after MTO or trying to stretch more dollars from municipalities, but we'll work on that one.
I'm content to do both.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Bell. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Roger, for your presentation. Not only is it very informative, having been privy to sit in on a few of your meetings because of Mayor Eccles' schedule, I find them both enlightening and very educational. The other thing is, I know you're very passionate about what you just spoke about, and I was going to ask the question that you give council that little bit of education, but I was wondering if there might be some way, maybe the member municipalities and any of those other ones that may want to join SMART, which I know there are some feelers out there to some other municipalities. If there's any way we can bring that forward in such a motion, maybe to go to AMO and seek their input, and whether that might be able to help us achieve that desire of yours, where maybe we can get rid of that cap, and maybe I think that'll help the municipalities in the long run in their funding towards SMART, but also help you in attaining that extra capital that's needed to move the business along. So I'm just throw that out there, and I saw the CAO writing that down, and being a man of vision and wisdom that he is, maybe we can bring that forward to be circulated to the other municipalities to move that ahead.
I know there is an interest, I believe it was discussed at the last meeting about trying to meet with Minister Murray at the next AMO conference and try to push forward the idea of finding a way of providing better funding to small municipal systems without, I mean, obviously lifting the cap on the large systems is going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars. But the small systems, the amount of the funding that goes into, I don't know, the smallest 50 or 60 systems in the province, is relatively small compared to what flows into the large systems. And if there was a way to tweak the system to provide better funding for those municipalities with lower population densities, and that's not just something somebody pulls out of a hat. That's a fact. You can put that on the table and
It
say
would be somewhat of a blimp on the radar as to the total financial picture in the province of Ontario.
I'm going to say you probably wouldn't notice it. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Roger at this point in time? Certainly, we've seen the numbers increase in West Grey, and that is very good thanks to yourself for the vision you've had of expanding SMART and the drivers that are out there that are delivering the service. I believe that SMART has a very good staff and very loyal and dedicated staff as well too that are delivering that for us out there.
Indeed we have.
And pass that along. But the other factor is as we baby boomers keep moving along through the system here, it's one of the things that I think goes hand in hand with the ministry of aging at home, aging in the community. It's a service that more and more in rural areas is going to be used and depended on for a number of individuals that are out there that I see using the system. So look forward to the continued growth and the effective running of the system, Roger, and congratulations to you, and send my regards back to the staff from West Grey on our congratulations on that. I may be able to deliver that one personally to at least one individual, but we'll look at that going forward. And again, thank you for coming and giving us an update. Greatly appreciated.
Very good. Thank you all for your time.
Very good. Okay. Now we're trying to stay somewhat on schedule, so we're doing pretty good if we're only about 5 minutes over. We have representatives here today from Community Living in Hanover and area for the Hark Industries and the updates on the activities. So I'm going to turn it over to Community Living.
Thank you.
And I'm on to make the presentation at the podium there for us.
Mark, did Beth talk to you about a PowerPoint?
Do you have the USB?
Yeah.
All right, we can set that one up. I was going to say, Larry, unless you're going to be the screen, you're going to... Yeah, that last comment that the deputy mayor gave you, you're...
Compliment, not to...
I said compliment. You got any background music, Adam, that you want to play while we're getting this set up?
I can dance.
Do you have any background music that you want to play?
Loud music.
He said he could dance.
Well, he followed instructions very well. Very well. The execution, yes. The execution, he followed the instructions. The execution wasn't perfect.
Yes.
We can work on that.
Smart guys get that done, I guess.
Okay. That's, the red button means that you're live now. So
Awesome.
whatever you're saying, Adam's recording out there.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Denise Bender, and I'm an employee of Community Living Hanover. I've been an employee for over 17 years with the agency, and I'd like to thank Wes Gray for having us and letting us speak about our agency with Community Living Hanover. So again, my name is Denise Bender. Along with me is
June Johnson.
and
Kevin Russell.
So we'll go through a slide program. As you may or may not be aware, May is Community Living Month, and we approached Wes Gray to do a proclamation, which I will ask if that is able to be done later on in the meeting. And we also brought along a flag, and I don't know if it can be raised for a couple of days. We do have another presentation next Monday, so we would need it back before then, but that's an option as well. So as I said, it's Community Living Month, May, and community living is an opportunity to celebrate accomplishments, achievements, and contributions to individuals with developmental disabilities. Community Living Month is also a time to raise awareness about the work of Community Living Hanover and area. Our mission is Community Living Hanover and area is committed to fostering a meaningful opportunity for all people we support. We believe in a holistic approach, informed choice, and quality of life is the utmost importance. As community support service, we welcome uniqueness and celebrate the abilities of everyone. In Community Living Hanover, we have we provide residential services. We have 4 24-hour supported group homes, one being in Newstead and the other 3 in Hanover. We have recreation supports to adults living with developmental disabilities and their families. It was established in 1977 in Newstead, and it was started as a small farming operation supporting just a few individuals. And our farm still does remain on a Newstead property that our group home is also on. Community Living Hanover is now thriving charitable organization that has been providing services for over 30 years in Hanover and Newstead and surrounding areas. Our programs and services include, like I mentioned before, the residential supports, and we also have supported independent living, where we provide supports to individuals that live on their own independently, but they may have a support worker coming in to help them with their budget, with dietary needs, shopping, doctor's appointments, and so forth. And even just a time to communicate and, share, visiting and sharing in what they enjoy doing. Residents are, like I said, in Hanover 3, and Newstead is 1 residence. Employment support services, we have a community-based supported employment service, so we get referrals sent down to us from the ODSP office of folks that are on ODSP that are looking for work, competitive employment. So we go out and search the local community for competitive employment opportunities, and we help do everything from job searching to job developing to going out and supporting them once they get their job. We do job coaching and anything to do with employment. We also have a work crew. They go out and do lawn maintenance, snow removal, and any type of work outside. They also have, in Hanover, they take away all the snow from all the fire hydrants, so they have a contract with them. So they do a lot of different contracts related to the outdoor work. Egg sales and shredding services, that's run out of our day program in Hanover, and so the barn in Newstead houses about 500 laying hens. So we do everything from the barn work. The eggs get brought up to our day program. Our folks do, it's a grade A grading station, so they do any work related to the eggs to get them ready to be able to sell. And then we sell them out of our office in Hanover. And then the shredding services, we offer shredding, confidential shredding services. It's housed in our day program as well. We go out and do a collection of any shredding that needs to be done from local businesses, or local businesses bring them into our agency and then we shred them. And, yep. Kevin, do you want to mention that? Kevin was mentioning that Wes Gray is one of our local supporters for the shredding business, so we thank you for that opportunity as well. Good remembering. Recreation and leisure program. In January this year, we opened up a leisure program, and we offer that Monday to Friday, and it's for individuals in the group homes, but also opened up to the community that would like to come in for a little bit of a day program services where they're into the community doing fun leisure programs. So we go bowling on Tuesday, therapeutic horseback riding lessons on Thursdays. They're always out in the community doing something. Art therapy is in it. Swimming, yeah. So they take advantage of all the different fun stuff in the community, and it just provides time away to be with their friends. We also have a snoozling room, which is right beside our office in Hanover. A snoozling room is a relaxing room for, it has lots of fun, different therapeutic stations, I guess you can call it, and chairs and furniture that allows people just to go and relax. Really good for autism and therapeutic relaxation. We also do the Good Food Box, and what happens is anybody in the community can reserve a Good Food Box. It's $15 per month, and you get a laundry hamper full of fresh vegetables and fruit. And we need to know a week in advance, and then the third Thursday of each month you can come and pick up these baskets. So it is a great program, and our folks put together those baskets. They get delivered from Ontario grown products, and it gets delivered to our office, and then they get all the baskets ready to be picked up and delivered. You have to come to the office to pick them up. They don't get delivered. So the following are just some pictures, and you'll see the top house on the top left-hand corner. That is our residence in Newstead. The snoozling room is on the bottom, and our main office, that is on 11th Ave in Hanover, is the one to the right. As Kevin flips through these photos, I'm gonna turn the mic over to June, and I'll let June talk while Kevin goes through some photos. So this is
June Johnson,
and
I live in Hanover. I work in Hanover at Community Living, doing our office work, cleaning.
How often do you clean?
Every week.
Yeah.
1 day a week.
And what are your hobbies?
I like to go out and to the shows and bowling on Tuesdays.
There's June right there.
And my best friend Jim,
And where is that picture taken? The golf course?
golf course. Helping out at the golf course.
So we have an annual golf tournament that's put on by our board of directors, and that is a huge fundraiser for our agency. So June and Jim like to come out and help every year.
Yeah.
What does community living Hanover mean to you, June?
Community living means it's a home for me. It's helped me out a lot.
Steady employment.
Employment.
And what are some of the fun things you do with community living?
Go on trips.
That's always a big thing.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be able to go on trips or outings without fundraising and supporting and all the different programs we run. Yeah. So thank you, June. Is there anything else you want to say? No. And Kevin, do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
I have the family of 3. It's me, my wife, and my son. I work for community living. I work actually on the outdoor crew for doing the 4-season property maintenance is what we call ourselves. We do anything from, like Denise said, fire hydrants to raking lawns to dirt removal and cutting grass. And then I've been there 7 years. They've helped me with job employment. And I work another job at a restaurant doing dishes. And before that, I used to work at Tim Hortons doing dishes there, which community living helped me with that job, getting in there. It's a good place to work, nice atmosphere. There's a lot of nice stuff they do for everybody. They do parties around Christmas time. They have a big Christmas party, which people are invited to. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. Oh yes, and I was able, with help from Hart, I was able to get one of the Habitat homes they built in Hanover. So me and my family have one of those. So other than that, it's been a good experience for me.
So we'll open the floor to any questions you may have, any pictures that you may have questions of. A lot of these pictures are them just hanging out and having fun, but there's also a lot of employment pictures. We went to the Belmore Maple Syrup Festival. There's our egg room. You'll see Jessica on the far right-hand side. She's right there in that picture weighing the eggs. So they all get weighed, and depending on their weight is how they get divided by size. There's the lawn crew out doing their work and having fun.
Let's see, where is this? Top right is a place out on Morrow Lake, Trudy Burns. We do hers about every 2 weeks. The top left is us actually in front of the shop. I'm getting ready to take off for the day. I honestly don't know where the next one is.
That's up here.
And this is the guys filling up gas on mowers.
Does anybody have any questions?
Open it up. Has anybody got questions?
Pretty quiet.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank
Deputy
you, ladies and gentlemen, for your excellent presentation. Just a quick question, how far out of Hanover do you travel for your lawn care services?
We go to Morrow Lake, Newstead. Most of them are mainly in town. We have had a few people ask us to clean up their properties out in Formosa and that. Like, we will, if the job's needed, we will go if we have time to do it. It's more of working in around the town is more based on what we do and that. And it takes us with 9 guys, a property this size, 45 minutes to cut it. And we all stand in a row, staggered, and just go around in a circle.
Quite a bit like council.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Can I ask how you charge for your services, or do you have a set rate, or maybe enlighten us a little bit on that?
Usually, John Holford, he's my boss. We usually have a set rate of $15 and up is what flat rate of $15. Depends on the size of the property.
So what happened, can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
So if anybody was ever interested in getting a quote, you would just call that local number 364-6100, and they would send you forward to John Hofarth, who's the maintenance crew overseer, and he would probably come out and do an estimate, is how he would just gather the information, and then from there, each one is different depending on what is wanting to be done. So yeah, that would be what I would say, is call that number, they'll direct you to John, and then you could get a quote done from there.
We do 31 lawns in 4 days. So,
They're busy.
Very good service.
Thank you. I would just like to close by thanking you guys so much for letting us again share our program in Community Living Hanover, and we're always a phone call away. Did you have any?
Sorry, I just forgot, like even with the lawn crew there, we go into the village seniors in Hanover, and twice a week we pick up their recycling and clean that up for them, as well as cut their grass. And there's some who do cardboard there.
Yep.
I think that's mainly it.
Yep. Yeah, so like any services, we always take on different adventures and opportunities, and we look forward to new opportunities, and if there's ever anything in the community, we're always grateful to be there to help out. Anything else? Great. Well, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Well, thank you very much, June, Kevin, Denise, for coming and giving us an update on the activities and a better insight into your part in the community of this part of Grey County. So appreciate it very much, and best of luck. And there is no question. We have a lot of paper, so we'll keep you employed shredding for quite a while.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Oh. Okay, we have our next delegation is with us today, Elaine Bonnert and Kevin Trimble from BDO, and they just are here to in their capacity to give us a presentation of the 2013 audited statements. And answer all the great questions that we'll have for them. But welcome today, Elaine. And Mr. Tremble, I take it is going to give us a presentation today, Kev. So. No, I don't think it is, Larry.
Sure.
Yes, we would certainly like the lights on to see this clearly.
We don't want to be in the dark on this.
So welcome this morning, Kevin, and I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Lead us on.
So Lane's passed out the financial statements to all of you. We might as well just get right into it. I'll go through it quickly and thoroughly. So if you go to page 2, this is your audit report. It's identical to the one last year. It's a clean audit report. Couple things let's outline here. This is management's responsibility for the preparation of the financial statements, your statements. We just provide an audit and an opinion on them. We perform tests to make sure our opinion has enough evidence that the financial statements aren't materially misleading. And then the biggest paragraph here is the opinion paragraph on page 3. It states that in our opinion, the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Corporation of West Grey as at December 31st, 2013. So this is a clean, unqualified audit report, which is what everybody wants to see. In past years, we hadn't realized that because certain parts weren't consolidated, like the airport and what?
Elmwood Community Center.
And Elmwood Community Center, but everything's good this year. And that's about it with the audit report. If we want to flip over to page 4, is the consolidated statement of financial position. This is your balance sheet. And I'll just outline differences from last year and a few high points. Your cash at the end of the year is 2.5 million. Last year's 2.4 million. Very comparable, and that just depends on timing of payments and receipts of receivables. The next line is temporary investments. It's gone from 486,000 last year to 250,000 in 2013, and the difference there is you guys just used 185,000 of gas tax investments for projects in 2013. You have to use up that money anyways by a certain date, so that's normal. The next line here is taxes receivable. It's gone from a balance of 2.1 million up to 2.67 million. A couple things that made that go up were at the end of 2013 there were some large supplementary taxes issued. There was the Moloch plant out near Mount Forest there, and a couple other ones that totaled 160,000 that haven't been received yet. They're issued in December, I think. And then the other big thing that made it go up is a new accounting policy or new accounting change this year for municipalities is that we have to estimate how much SUPs and write-off there are that haven't been billed yet. So that's new construction that MPAC hasn't had a chance to assess and bill. We make an estimate of the unbilled taxes. So that was an estimate of 130,000 that will be billed over the next 2 years or so. That's an accounting policy change that's just started this year, so it's not shown in last year's balance either. Yeah, so obviously there's that'll increase the receivable balance because they haven't been billed yet. They're not going to pay it in advance, I don't think.
And the other thing is this is the only place where we'll be doing estimates in the audited statements, Kevin?
Yeah. The next line is grants and subsidies receivable. Last year was 146,000, this year 134,000. Almost very little change there. I'll just move on here. The next line is trade and other receivables. It was 886,000 in 2012 and 784,000 in 2013. The biggest difference there is that 64,000 of tile drain principal was received in 2013. Other than that, it's very comparable. The next point here is commitments and contingencies, and that's on page 29, notes 20 and 21. So the commitments that we have identified here is you guys have pledged support to the Markdale Hospital in the amount of $190,000 over 10 years. As at December 31st, 2013, you guys have set aside $140,000 in reserve to cover this. And contingencies is the contract with the police. If someone's to die in the line of duty, you guys are responsible for 100% of the employee's disposal after tax income. So that's just it's a potential payment that you guys could have to pay. There's no dollar figure identified in the statements. It's just something we have to identify as a potential liability. And your insurance will cover that, but it's just we don't know you don't know to what extent, I guess. Back to the balance sheet on page 4, we're down to liabilities. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities, they've gone from 1.4 million to 1.38 million. They've gone down. Very comparable. The biggest things in there are accrued wages of 257,000, and then there's trade accounts payable of 843,000 and other accruals of 180,000. Very comparable to last year. It just depends on timing of purchases and payments around year end. The next line is deferred revenue. It's 793,000 and it's gone down to 781,000 this year. Very comparable. I'm not going to elaborate any further on that. There's more details on note 5 on page 12. The next line is long-term debt. It's gone from 2 million to 1.7 million, and the difference there is just regular scheduled principal repayments. I think there was a small tile drainage loan of 13,000, but other than that, it's just your scheduled repayments. So nothing further to elaborate there. The next line is landfill site closure and post-closure costs. So this is the estimate of what it's going to cost to look after these landfills for the next 25 years until they're all said and done with.
Oh, so there is another estimate in here.
There's a couple. So it's gone from 778,000 to 821,000, and that's just strictly based on estimated usage of the landfill. It'll keep on going up until the landfills are at full capacity each year. If you want to look on page 14, note 7, there's some more details there. It says there's the total estimated cost after they're all done with is 961,000. So there's still about another $140,000 in costs that will keep increasing until the landfills are at full capacity. And it says the remaining sites have a useful life of, or expected remaining life of 2 to 19 years, depending on which site of the 3 remaining open sites. Back to the balance sheet. Employee future benefits, they've gone from 200,000 to 218,000. Very little change there, and that's your OMERS and the police post-retirement. obligation. I don't think there's anything further to say there. So that brings us down to a net financial asset position of 1.4 million. That's up from 935,000 last year, which is about 500,000. The biggest reason for that is your taxes receivable have gone up by about 500,000. Everything else is pretty comparable. And like I explained earlier, a lot of that is the subs that were issued at the end of the year and the estimated unbilled taxes that we've accrued for. In the non-financial assets, there are prepaids and inventory, which is your sand inventory or whatever else you guys keep your fuel. Yeah, paper. I don't think we set up paper as an asset here, but yeah, it's very comparable to last year. And then the big item there is the tangible capital assets. They've gone from 76 million down to 75.4 million. If you want to go to page 16, it kind of breaks it down a little more. So there was additions of $2 million. You guys spent $2 million on new capital projects. There's amortization expense of 2.7 million. A couple of the bigger projects that you guys did during the year was the Rona building, 415,000. You purchased 2 new graders, 2013 graders for 558,000. The Durham elevator project, you've spent to date 86,000 as of December 31st. The Normandy Bridge project was 235,000, and the Scotts Hill Road resurfacing was 42,000. A couple of the sales that you guys did during the year, you sold Kincardine Street land for 84,000. The Dornoch Hall for about 56,000. And then when you purchased the 2 graders, you traded in 4 older ones, and you received 87,000 in proceeds for that. That's about it there. So that brings us down to accumulated surplus amount of 77 million, which is down from 77.3 million last year. Is there any questions on the balance sheet?
Don, Councilor Marshall?
Just a comment about the taxes receivable. In 2006, it was 1.5 million. So it's going up about 200,000 a year, approximately. And I believe that's the ability to pay by the taxpayer. And that number, I believe, will just keep getting worse as taxes keep going higher. So I believe there's a problem there.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to have to change.
Yeah, a lot of the increase is, like if you take off this, the SUPs at the end of the year of 160,000, because they haven't had a chance to pay that yet, and our estimate of 130,000, they've gone up about, like you said, about 200,000 this year. A lot of that is interest on taxes that are over 3 years old that they're still not paying, or the payment plan is small, and the interest is basically going up at the same rate they're repaying it. All of your overdue accounts, the property value is valued at more than what they are, the receivable balance is. So there is an ability for you guys to collect those taxes if you were to go to tax sale on them. I don't know if that's a policy you guys have to do, and it's your collection policies, I guess, or sometimes it's tough to get money from people.
Well, Larry thought he might have some new ideas going forward too, so.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's fair. We have not been aggressive on taking that. It's not so much about new, and we will debate that, Councillor Marshall, at some point, about how new ones are coming on, as much as it is inherited and long-term ones that haven't been effectively or aggressively taken into account. And it is, I think as Kevin has said, the largest part of that 200,000 that is an actual increase is interest on
Over
3 year, on the long term, or critical ones that have been out there for chronic ones that have been out there for quite a while. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of, added ones in. It's the chronic ones that we haven't taken an aggressive manner on. So that may be something that going forward, doing that may put a bit of more of a positive effect on those tax collections. And Carrie, I was going to just mention the subs that impact came along with. The first was 160,000 was about the 28th of December, so getting those out and getting it back in by the 31st. Even as efficient as BDO was putting numbers down, we couldn't get those ones in, but there has been, those have been pretty much collected at this point in time. And then the 130,000 is just an estimate of building as impact brings that on, that it's got to be recognized in the year. So out of the 160, that's really the ones that have been billed, it has been collected or is in the process of substantially being collected.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So on page 18, the cumulative surplus is broken down into different components. Note 10, it's made up of a general surplus of 500,000. Your capital amounts to be financed, which is the biggest things there are the Durham Lips and the Durham Hall project. There's still some amounts that have to be financed somehow. And then there's the capital assets of 75 million. And the next line is reserves and reserve funds of 4.2 million, which are up from 3.6 million last year. And if you flip over the page to note 11, it outlines the different reserves and broken down different categories. And I think Carrie has given everybody a breakdown of what reserves tie into these amounts here. So if you have any questions on that, feel free, but I'm not going to go into each one in detail. But the reserves are up 600,000 this year. I think that was an area of concern last year, that the reserves were low. So back to note 10, the next line is amounts to be recovered of 2.68 million, and that is your long-term debt less the tile drain loans of 1.6 million, your employee future benefits of 200,000, and your landfill closure and post-closure of 821,000. So that's stuff that'll be financed in the future or paid for in the future. So that gets you down to accumulated surplus of 77 million. And then below there on note 10, it breaks down what the general surplus is made up of. So is there any questions on those balances there? Okay, moving on to the page 5, consolidated statement of operations. This is your income statement. So I'll just quickly go over a few of the high points here. Taxation revenue is up about 500,000. It would be comparable to budget except for that additional 136,000 that we estimated for unbilled tax revenue for new construction during the year. You guys didn't budget for that because it's a new standard, I guess, and wasn't really aware of it at budget time. Other than that, your grants, you budgeted 3.3 million. Actual is 3.37 million, very close to budget. Everything else is very comparable to budget here. User fees are down a little bit compared to budget, and that's your building permit revenue is down about 125,000 this year. But again, it's tough to predict what new construction is going to go on during the year. So overall, your revenue is up 500,000 from budget. and it's down about 200,000 from last year. But on $13 million budget to be only off 500,000, it's not a big variance at all. For expenses, every amount is very, very close to budget, all within 5%, except for down at the bottom, planning and development. You've only budgeted 116,000 and expenses were 168,000. And the biggest difference there is you repaid a tile drain loan was repaid during the year for 53,000 that wasn't budgeted for. Overall, you budgeted $13.8 million in expenses. You came in with $14.1 million in expenses, which is less than, it's 1.8% off budget. So on $13.8 million to be only off 1.8% was pretty good. That gets us down to a deficit position of 307,000, which was budgeted for because there was a surplus last year. So again, that was expected. And then, so that's basically your income statement. Is there any questions on that? Moving on. Page 6 is the change in net financial assets. This just reconciles from your surplus and takes out all of the basically your capital asset transactions during the year and gets you down to your net financial asset position. I've gone over kind of what the changes in capital assets were earlier. There was the one line here, the write-down of tangible capital assets. The construction that you guys did, it was 90,000. The construction you did at 790 Garifrax in Durham for the potential well. You guys aren't going to go ahead with that project, so we had to write off those test well expenses during the year because the property is not worth the additional expenses that were incurred during the year. Other than that, there's really nothing else to note there. Is there any questions on this statement? On page 7 is the cash flow statement. It starts with your annual surplus and reconciles down to the change in cash during the year. A couple high points is you generated cash of 1.9 million through operations, so that's through tax revenue and your day-to-day operations. You spent it on purchase of capital assets of 1.8 million and repaying long-term debt of 284,000. And your cash led to a net cash decrease of 145,000. On page 8, it starts in the notes of the financial statements. I'll only go over the notes that are the summary of significant accounting policy that have changes. On page 9, there's a revenue recognition policy, and this is this tax revenue change that I discussed earlier. Taxes are recorded at estimated amounts when they meet the definition of an asset, have been authorized, and a taxable event occurs. So that's when the new construction occurs. We have to start recording the estimated revenue. So that's a change from what we did in prior years. It was we only recorded the revenue after MCAP has assessed the property. Other than that, all your accounting policies are the same. Note 1 to the financial statements is, as I just discussed, is the new tax revenue PSAB policy that you guys have adopted, and it shows the increased revenue for the year of 136,000. As for the notes to the financial statements, I've gone through the high points on a lot of them.
You've all had a chance to look over the draft statements because you had them over the weekend. Does anybody have any questions on any of the notes? Any note that you want us to cover? If not, we could just sit through them.
Go ahead, I suggest.
I've talked about the first 14 notes already, or hit on the high points. Note 15 is your segmented info note, and this just breaks down all the different expenses and revenues by segment. So your police, your fire, health, wastewater, and water, and then so that's for your information. I don't know if there'll be any questions on that. Note 16 shows the consolidated amounts from Elmwood Fire and Saugeen.
Smart.
Yeah, Smart.
Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit.
Yeah.
So there is one thing to highlight there from the government partnerships note. Saugeen Municipal Airport and Elmwood Community Center, their financial statements were not available yet. So they have not been consolidated into your numbers. However, their tangible capital assets, we already had in there from last year. And if there were any changes, there weren't any significant changes, so we felt comfortable with issuing a clean auditor's report. Even though their numbers are not consolidated in here, they're small enough that it wouldn't impact you.
Other than that, unless there's any other questions, I'm not going to go into detail on the trust funds financial statement. It's a clean audit report as well. And the library, I'm not going to go into detail unless there's specific questions, but it is also a clean audit report. All the numbers very comparable to last year.
Included in your package is also financial statements from Smart and Elmwood Fire. So that it's all in one place for you to refer to.
Are there any questions on the financial statements as a whole?
I got to say, I had the opportunity to go over these with Carrie and Elaine and Kevin one day last week, so they answered all of my questions, as limited in a financial capacity as I am at that point in time. But if there are any other ones, I guess the biggest one is answered when Elaine and Kevin sat down and said it's very clean. That's the words that we as council really want to hear, and I think that our faith in Carrie and her financial team certainly is recognized here in a full force by the way that the audit come through this year. So Carrie, thank you very much for delivering on our budget and keeping us in budget line and being able to deliver this type of a audit. So congratulations to you and the staff that work with you, and Sharon and oh, sorry, okay, don't need to go any further with that one. Especially Sharon and the rest of the staff that we have down there to do that work. So.
I totally agree with you there, Kevin. Carrie's staff is great to work with. Anytime we've made management letter points, they're very keen to take our recommendations in and implement them, so they're great to work with.
Very glad to hear that, and going forward we'll try and keep this going in the right direction as reserves fall into line and revenues maintained and expenses drop. I think that's the way it's supposed to go. Yeah. Okay. If there are no other questions on the audit, I do have a motion moved by David Molson and seconded by Mark Rapke, which I'll introduce at this point in time. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby accepts the Municipality of West Grey consolidated financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2013, as prepared by BDO Canada LLP. Is there any questions or comments on that motion? Call the question, then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried unanimously. Again, thank you, Elaine and Kevin, for working with our staff and being able to deliver this type of a document to us. It gives us a great appreciation and thought that we are headed in the right direction. It's still a challenge, and hopefully we can continue working with BDO and getting those results that we need for the municipality and the constituents and residents of West Grey. So thank you.
Like that too?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, a couple of you certainly do.
You can just send
Okay.
that over. You can-
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
One copy
One
for you.
copy for us. Yep, thank you.
Does council want a quick break? All right, can we take just a couple of minute break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you, Adam. And we're down to the accounts, or we're down to, sorry, not the accounts, we're down to Carrie's report. We'll start at that. Welcome this morning, Carrie. And the first one we have is the accounts. There was a bit of a technical problem, so I will go through the accounts. I think Carol had a hard copy. She may be the only one that had it. They didn't come through, so what we'll do is go through the way we have quite a while ago. So we'll go through them page by page. And with that, any questions on page 1? Seeing none. Any questions on page 2? Any questions on page 3? Predominantly fire. Page 4 is building and then into construction, public works. On page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Anything on page 11? Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. And page 16. I believe that's about it. No questions? If I could, Carrie, I just wanted to make, yeah, there it's coming now. Just wanted to make a comment. It always seems odd that we have to go to the Mildmay Cheese House to buy ice for the arenas, but you know. Yeah, you can only skate on that other stuff. Okay. There's no questions on the accounts. I have a motion moved by Don B. Marshall and seconded by John Eccles. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 8, 2014 of the Municipality of West Grey in the amount of, $324,000 and $78.36. Any questions or comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. The next one, Carrie, your next report, number 2, is something that come up in the audit about transferring the property sales that we had this year into the account. Any other comments on that? That's about it.
Yeah, no, fairly straightforward. Just I should have had it done at the time the sales occurred, but they were transferred to the Municipal Capital Facilities Reserve, which had kind of been the previous unofficial policy, if you want to say it that way, was the intention of it. So it's just that's where they did get transferred to, and it's just confirming that procedure.
Okay. Any questions of Carrie? I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence and seconded by Mark Rapke. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the transfer of the net proceeds from the 2013 property sales in the amount of $83,959.74 from the Kincardine Street property and $56,908.98 from the Dornoch Hall to the West Grey Municipal Facilities Reserve. Any questions or comments on this reserve or resolution? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. And Carrie, your next report is on the financial plan for the water systems of the Newstead and Durham drinking water systems. You've laid it out for us. Is there any questions or comments from you, Carrie, on it? It is pretty straightforward, and I think in your, certainly in the background information, it is kind of a, no pun intended, a fluid document that there will be recognized that there will be changes as we go forward with it, but something to meet the regulations and give us at least a wide framework before, as we keep going forward and narrowing that down as to what expenses we're going to need to be invested into the infrastructure. Okay, if there's no questions for Carrie at this point in time, then I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson and seconded by John Eccles. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the financial plan dated May 5th, 2014 for the Newstead and Durham drinking water systems as contained in the Director of Finance Treasurer Report, FTR 050514. Any questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, any other comments, questions, Carrie?
Just a couple of additions that you'll see in your agenda. We received back the lease from Elections Ontario. It's there in full swing and anxious to get that done, so they've agreed to the rate that Council had proposed. So that bylaw is on later, and also the renewed gas tax agreement, that bylaw is on for authorization of signing as well. The tax rate bylaw, there was a slight change to the education rate for farmland and managed forest. The province had rounded it to 6 digits, but when the calculations are done, it should actually be further out. So it made like 0.0058 to 0.00575. It's not significant, but if it wasn't an administrative burden, we should go with the actual rate that's on there. So if we hadn't done any billing or anything, so and also the I had missed putting in the vacant new construction commercial vacant unit rate, so it's on there as well. So those were the 2 changes on the tax rate bylaw.
Okay, Carol, Councilor Lawrence.
Question on that lease for the Rona building. I noticed it still mentions air conditioning, and I thought we had a question about that that we will provide air conditioning. It's in there. I don't think that building's air conditioned, is it?
Depending on how many doors are open and which way the wind's blowing, it may be, but
We had a discussion around that at Committee of the
we
Whole,
certainly
and I
did.
thought we were going to remove air conditioning from it.
They are kind of standard government contracts, but if you want to exit out, hopefully it won't be an issue, but they are, in practical terms, it's not an issue for them. They're in there. They're it's,
get really hot weather. Stay by.
can we address that when it's, when the bylaw is introduced and see if council wants to? I think Carrie said we could exit from that. I don't see there being a big problem with it. And I don't know whether we ever did, see Ken and Larry discussing that over there. We find out for certain whether there is down there or not. I'm thinking that there is, but go ahead, Ken.
I'll check before you introduce the bylaw.
All right, thanks, Ken. Very good. All right. Any other questions? There only was one other one when I read through that bylaw, Carrie. It's $1,500. There was something in there that said payment in full, and it comes out to about $2,400 and some odd dollars. It didn't quite jive with me, and I didn't get a chance this morning to just...
did the dates, was it partway through the month to prorate it for 6 weeks, if you will, maybe? I'm just trying to remember the dates that were on.
Well, I think the dates are from May 1st to...
Did you say June 15th or something?
No, it's July. It goes to July. It's almost 2 months before they get it shut down. Mark's got the hard copy right there. Wasn't it my understanding that it went to July? 1st or 2nd? Yeah, 2nd day of July, so that's why I thought it would be almost it would be the 2 months. But the payment in full was for 24 something. So can I ask you before we've got a few minutes to check that out? Whether we've got the right numbers in there. Okay. So we'll have some of those updates when we get to bylaws. Anything else from Carrie? Carrie probably wants time sheets. That would be one thing that would be on her mind, so time sheets by the end of the day would be good. Okay. All right, thank you, Carrie. Ken, down to yours. And the first one, it's been through the water and whatnot, is the report from MTO that they're going to be doing some work on the Saugeen Bridge at the Rocky Saugeen Bridge on Highway 6 somewhere in the near future. Going to give us any type of closer date than that, Ken?
No, they use a very broad time frame to let us know about this, but anyway, one of the more important parts of it is that they're just going to close one lane at a time, so that'll be a relief for our rural roads where they'd have to go around and require constant maintenance. So that's one good thing about it. But no, that's the only time frame they give us, so I'm not sure what year it's supposed to start work.
Well, we'll see what happens with them. The next one, Ken, is the fuel tender.
Councillor Don has a question.
And Don, sorry, Councillor Marshall.
Just back to the bridge, this one here really wasn't on the radar as far as I'm concerned, but the one in Durham, Garrett Fraxel, was on the radar a couple years ago, and now it's kind of disappeared. I figure it's in good shape now, and they're gonna download it to us maybe.
I believe they already have downloaded to us, Don. It's part of the connecting link, so for us to do repairs there, we'd have to apply for some sort of a funding grant from the province to allow the work to start on the main Saugeen River Bridge at George Street.
That didn't come with no compensation.
They never even said the check was in the mail.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Go ahead, Rob.
But just further on that Garrett Fraxel Street Bridge there, I don't know if you've taken a look at it in the last little while, but there's a fairly large hole you can see way down on the southeast or southwest corner of that bridge. It should be, it's a fairly large drain. There's a hole there that you can maybe just patch it up or something.
Okay, we'll have a look at it.
Just as further comment to yours, Councillor Marshall, when I was had the opportunity to meet with Minister Murray at Good Roads, he hosted a breakfast meeting and a number of communities that had connecting links, right from the mayor of Dryden right down through to into Essex County. Quite a large number of municipalities represented at that breakfast meeting, and one of the things that he was an absolute concern from all in the room was not about taking them down, but what funding was coming with those bridges. And they were taking that very seriously and trying to come up with some type of funding formula that would be available on that major part, specifically the bridges that were coming down. Because I made the one statement I did make to him was that if bridges get into that capacity when they're under our control, we just put a load limit on it and have the trucks find a different way around it. And I think he took that very seriously, as a number of other municipalities did too, that the King's Highways may be looking for alternate routes if there's not any funding comes with those downloaded bridges. So we'll see going forward. Don?
So just for clarification, then it really hasn't been downloaded onto us yet. There's still a chance for compensation, or there's still negotiation in that.
There's still a chance for a compensation formula coming forward, but we've got it.
We've got it.
It's been downloaded.
So apply for a grant for that bridge, there might be a better chance of getting it through a grant process. That'll be bumped up there to the top of the list.
Yep.
Any idea what the cost would be to rehabilitate it? It's just a new deck on it, right?
Yeah, I think the main concern from the last report was the deck and also the barrier. Apparently there's an upgrade needed on the barrier protection on it, on all four corners there. Quite concerned about the west side there where it overlooks the little pool. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And just to give some idea, does 400,000 stick in my mind?
Yeah, I have a copy of the report in my office there, but I can give it to you, Don, or any other council member that wishes to have a look at it. So,
yeah, was what empty those estimates were at the time. Okay. All right. No other questions on that. Then we'll move down to the fuel tender, and we tendered with the county. Recommendation coming forward is that can we accept the tender from Bird Fuels at 1.5 cents above the daily rack price? Any further comments, Ken?
yeah, this was just opened up in the last week. Previously, the previous contract was 2 cents over the rack price and 5 cents for furnace oil, so it's actually dropped somewhat from the previous contract. So it's certainly good news. It's, we can just get the rack price set where it's not quite so high, we'll be in good shape.
Let's just be clear, the delivery price per liter has dropped.
Yes.
The price per liter, even at the rack price, continues to rise. Okay, no other questions or comments on that? And I have a motion moved by David Molson and seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby accepts the tender from Wayne Bird Fuels through the joint tender with Grey County to supply diesel fuel at 1.5 cents over the daily rack price and furnace oil at 3 cents over the daily rack price to the Municipality of West Grey as per the terms in tender. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Eccles. John?
Do they deliver on their schedule or when we request delivery?
Actually, John, I don't think we've ever called them. They keep things topped up, and it's never been an issue. It's the same contractor doing it again, so.
Okay. Okay, so we've had very good service from Bird. Any other questions? I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Next one, Ken, is the Anaher Park Estate Fund. Looking for direction on council to use some of that interest that's accumulated there in that account. And as per the bequest, it is only the interest that can be used on the park. So what's the wishes of council? Carol, Councillor Lawrence.
Well, Mr. Mayor, talking to people from Newstead, that Anaher fund was to be used at the park, particularly on the keeping the pond maintained. So it would seem that prudent that we pass a motion allowing that money to be drawn for that. I'm not sure that it was intended for just cutting the grass, for instance, regular maintenance in that park, but items like the pond, it was very important to them down there, and it does take, like, it really needs to be upgraded every year because it gets pretty ratty looking. So whatever we would need to put this into motion, I think we should be doing it.
Okay, well, I think Mark has a resolution. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Bell. John?
Yeah, just real quickly, when this estate was obviously set up, there was probably some criteria set around it. Does it specifically say that you cannot use it for grass cutting? Or for maintenance, or does it just say for capital?
No, but just understanding the thought behind that, it was intended for, like the triangle, when they redid the triangle as you come in there, landscaped, I believe some was used for that. I think some has been used for park playground. But if you use it for just ongoing, you're soon, you know, you're not going to have very much in there when it comes to these other projects.
And if I could, John, not knowing specifically, but knowing that it has been used for capital projects and not on operational projects, I'm not sure whether it is totally specific that it's capital, but that's what it's always been used at. And
Understanding operation of the pond is covered, and a lot of it was intended around that pond, I guess, when they put it in, and then the ongoing upgrade of, you know, maintenance of the pond.
as long as everybody's clear, that's good. Yeah. Okay, any other questions on the Newstead Park? Then I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence and seconded by David Mollison. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey gives direction to the West Grey Director of Finance Treasurer to use the interest from the Anaher Park Estate Fund for maintenance expenditures at the Newstead Lions Park. Everybody okay with that? Any questions on the motion?
Well, that won't be construed at some point in the future to mean grass cutting and that, I'm wondering it shouldn't be a little bit more specific?
Well, that's what I was thinking, should be capital expenditures at the Newstead Park, not as maintenance expenditures.
Perhaps, or something stating not for operational, I don't know, whatever. We know what we mean, but I mean, 3-4 years down the road.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, if it's the capital expenditures, and I mean, that's what we have here this year.
Thing that the pond, that's not really capital, the maintenance of the pond. Could we say capital expenditures and maintenance of the pond, or pond maintenance?
Well, yeah, we can, Mark.
I'm just wondering where the request came from. Like, maybe it would be better if there were specific things, like Carol's saying, if they were itemized. Like, I don't know if we have to pass it today, but if there's a pond, like maybe there's 2 or 3 things instead of just saying pond. Like, it is saying just operations there. I don't know how you identify them. If you want to make them general like that, I don't know. Just not sure where the request came from. If it was
That we use money?
yeah, where the yeah.
That's, you know, we mentioned it at the last
Yep.
meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think if you said capital expenditures and maintenance of the pond, it would pretty much
Okay.
cover it. And then if I mean, it can come back to council if there is something specific.
So I have kind of a friendly amendment that Treasurer be Treasurer to use the interest from the Anahura Park Estate Fund for capital expenditures and pond maintenance at the Newstead Lions Park. You fine with that, mover and seconder? Okay. Okay, we've adjusted. Don, Councilor Marshall.
But maybe that's not what Anna Herman wanted to do.
Yes, it is. My understanding is that's what was intended.
Did she put that in her policy?
Go back to the will, I guess, and see what it said. Discussing it with people in Newstead, that certainly has been the understanding over the years. I don't even know when that was left. It's some years ago, isn't it, Kevin? I have no idea of the date. But
I'm going to say it was back in the early 90s when that was set up, and it might even been in the 80s, but I'm thinking it was in the early 90s that was set up. It was before amalgamation, and that's what it's been used to put the pond in there and capital expenditures. The biggest thing is it can only be the interest on the estate, and if I'm 55,000 or 60,000, I believe what it was. I think that's what's in the reserve. So it's the interest on that on a yearly basis is what we're collecting on it. But it is only the interest. It can't be the capital. It's the interest to be used on that, maintaining the pond. And that, it's only the interest, and the way it's been from before amalgamation has been used is on that pond and capital expenditures.
So the interest can be used on repairing the capital expenses that, like
yeah.
the pond that have,
On the pond,
on the swing set.
You know, upgrades, swing set. And I would even say the pavilion as well too. You know, as a capital expenditure, whether it needed a new roof on it at some point in time.
And that could be construed as a repair, which that
could be.
That recommendation would not allow.
Right.
So
if it was to repair it, yeah, then you've got to get into the idea, is it capital or is it repair?
Yeah. I think it should be left open.
wouldn't take that as a friendly amendment, Mr. Mayor, as a mover.
Okay. So I have the motion here. John.
I'd like to know what her original request was. We can go for years and years and years and people see what we spend the money on and then they think that's what it has to be spent on, but I'd really like to know what her original request was.
we want to hold this off until we table it until we find the next, if we can find the way that the bequest came and what the restrictions are on that, Ken? Somebody want to make a motion to table? Moved by John, seconded by John.
Which John?
No, it's just John and John. You can put B and E where you want.
Whichever way you want to put it down.
That we
Keep the dancer ahead of me.
put that we table it until to a future council meeting. Until information can be received on the restrictions around the Anahura Estate Fund. Okay? What do we do? Deferred or table? I'll put them together. So I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Bell, second by Councillor Eccles. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby tables Resolution 14314. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. Hopefully, Ken, Carrie's help, you'll be able to do the, or somebody else get the research and find how that was set up. Okay. Anything else? Ken?
That's all I have at this time.
Carol? Question?
Comment or a question for Ken, is this the proper time, or are you?
Yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ken about, I had a call from Don Calder about southern Normanby, a road there. Road 63, they would like to clean it up, and they are working towards or hoping that they might pursue a heritage designation on it in name of the settlers. But however, there is an area on a very steep embankment that has fridges and tires and stuff has been dumped over it. So he was asking if the municipality would be able to assist, or at least to clean those. They're willing to clean up the road, but those are a little heavy. Apparently Keith Peffer knows where this dump is, so bring that to your attention. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, we'll check into that and look after it. This is certainly being a year of the dumping on the sides of the road. It's really got out of control this spring for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's seemed to be happening more frequently than in previous years.
Okay. All right. And there was a pulled from the consent agenda, Ken, motion dealing with the loading and unloading. So when we pulled that, we talked about down on Garifraxa Street about at Committee of the Whole on moving that or putting a loading and unloading on the southeast corner of Garifraxa Street South in Lambton there at the lights. And Councillor Marshall had a few comments on that. So, Don?
Yeah, it was commented on that the one in front of the Royal Bank, the handicap parking, and the one across the hash marks across the road are sort of in line with each other, but they're not. If we put the parking loading zone in that hash mark on the road, it'll be in front of Secure Insurance, which if it's a florist truck unloading for the florist there, that big cube van, they're going to get pretty close to the crosswalk, the front of that vehicle. So I'm not sure there's enough room there for a loading unloading zone.
Ken, have you had time to look at it?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked at that.
So maybe the best thing here would be, before we introduce this, it's been pulled, they ask that you, or, get some comments from Steve and address the issues that Councillor Marshall has brought up. Whether we do have the room in there from where the last parking spot is on that east side, on the southeast side, and how close we can come, what distance is in there, I guess. Ken?
So we're looking at an additional stall there to the north of the last one?
Yeah, my understanding is what we were looking at is where the last parking spot was, and there is a hash mark diagonal, but that it would even up with the one right across the street on the west side, where that last parking spot is. And on the west side, there is a handicap parking that's further to the north. Councillor Marshall is concerned that there isn't enough room there for a loading zone from that last parking spot. So now does it become, I guess, one of those things, do you take the parking spot out and leave that distance in there? I guess that's what you're asking, Don, right?
Don't want to make this paint the lines in there and then have something happen that's too close to the corner and somebody can't make a left or right hand turn on Fairfax and up left because there's a truck parked too close to the crosswalk.
Okay.
Cars coming up, making that turn, and pedestrians coming onto the green light happen. Have to walk up in front of a parked vehicle there, stepping it onto the traffic zone.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Bell, John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's not forget, I guess when this request came forward was for a vehicle drop off, a normal car / pickup. I think if you get a cube van, and if you start talking cube van, and I know we talked about deliveries on there and all that kind of stuff, but a cube van, if you're gonna, I don't think they park in normal parking spot on Main Street now, do they?
No, he just throws the four-ways on the middle of the street.
That's my point. So if there needs to be a little more room there, I don't know if you take I don't know if you make a little bigger parking spot for something like that, recognizing you combine two into one, still with some room to get around the corner or not, but that's just an idea. But like, yeah, if Ken looks at that, that's great. I think that probably needs to be done.
Just gonna say, it's hard to tell those hash marks aren't there any longer because of the water main breaks in there. It's all new asphalt on top of that. But when they were there, it didn't even come to the south corner of secure insurance. But anyways, you'll have to look at that closer. But just to say, the delivery for the florist for the one business usually occurs around 7:30 in the morning. So there's lots of parking for him. He usually parks down in front of the store, and it hasn't been an issue since they changed their hours. But anyways, it'd be better for you to look and measure, Steve.
Okay. So if we're fine with that, Ken, we can look forward to that coming back on the next report then, instead of going through on the consent. All right. So we want to introduce that motion and look forward to a report from Ken. Okay, thank you. I guess it goes back to being in the carpentry. It'd be better to measure twice and cut once. Okay. All right. Anything else for our director? No? Well, thank you then, Ken. Councillor Eccles, John?
I had a question this morning, when the 5-ton signs might be coming down off our municipal roads.
They're coming down today, some of them. There's a couple of roads we can't. The surface treatment's a little tender, but most of the roads are coming off, yes.
Okay. Just in time for some of our farmers to get out there and doing the spring seeding. Be time for spring to show up too. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else then for Ken, thanks Ken. Mark, yours, and we're down to the committee of the whole recommendations, the ones that haven't gone through on the consent agenda. This one The first one is on the proposed Ontario-wide noise nuisance bylaw. That at Committee of the Whole, we had a presentation from an individual from North Perth, and Council had it, and you're looking for direction. Any other comments on it, Mark?
The recommendation from the Committee of the Whole was part of the resolution stated financial donation to be determined, so I wasn't sure if Council was going to consider what that financial donation would be at this point, or consider that again down the road.
Well, the mover of the motion isn't here, but the seconder is. Are there any comments of what thought, time to contemplate on monetary?
The amount immediately, they want a commitment that we will or will not take part in it. When he was speaking, I was thinking somewhere in terms of 3,000 to 3,500 based on what other municipalities and the number of turbines they have and their financial contribution. If we were hoping there's no more than 14, 3,000 to 3,500 might be in the range for us, but I don't know if we need to decide that now, or is that going to be part of when we start looking at budget in October? I don't believe they want the money now.
And that, I think, would be better, because I'm just not sure. We just heard from the auditors, yes, we've got some reserves out there, but then it would be a change in trying to figure where we would pull that money from. So if it is into October, and it sounds like it's going to be at least then before they ever get somebody going forward with it.
I do believe there was extra money, I don't know how much extra, was put into for legal fees in our budget this year, though, around the whole issue of turbines.
Well, we may have put some extra in, but we've been using it
We've
up.
been using quite a bit, yes, I realize that.
Just as much, yeah.
Something could be discussed with Carrie, though.
Going forward, and I kind of like the idea, so comments, John?
No, real quick, yeah, I don't think there's any hurry for the cash, and I do agree with Councilor Lawrence. The idea behind this was to gather and see if there were enough people that were interested and were willing to participate with the contribution of finances to follow.
Okay. Rob?
It was on the news there the other day after the presentation, the following day, on the radio, Saugeen Shores pledged 15,000 towards the bylaw.
And then listening to Mr. Howard, so it was more of, how many do you have? And I know Kincardine and Saugeen Shores certainly have quite a bit more. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions on the noise nuisance? Just confirm this resolution I have in front of me has been moved by John D. Bell and seconded, John A. Bell, and seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports in principle and in practice the framing of an Ontario-wide coalition to investigate and draft a generic noise nuisance bylaw with financial donation to be determined. Yep. I've got the interpretation from the writer here, forming. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Don, Councilor Marshall.
Well, this is another obstacle for the wind turbines, and I don't agree with the way they're implemented, but I do agree that somewhere in the next 20 or 30 or 40 years, green energy will become, that'll be our energy source, whether it be hydroelectric or solar or wind or some other form. according to the nuclear repository that they're gonna put in the ground, they're saying the nuclear program will last maybe another 100 years. So I believe that the green energy coming into force now is like the first computers that they built. And if we had went through them for 3 or 4 years and no upgrades, we probably would have given up on that. But technology is going to get better and better, and I believe that we cannot put obstacles in place to prevent this evolution from happening. That's what we're doing. We're saying we don't want to look at them this generation, but I think future generations are gonna pay for that.
Comments, Carol?
I think when Warren Howard was here, he made it very clear that this is not an obstacle to stop turbines. It's a bylaw to control on behalf of the residents, wherever they may be, citizens, of the noise. And I believe it was called night noise. It's not to stop them, but it's to put some control back into the hands of municipalities for the benefit of our ratepayers, that they're not subjected to this noise and so on. I think he clearly said it's not the object to stop them with this bylaw.
Okay, any further comments? And I'd just like to say that as well too, if I could, from the chair. If we're going forward with this, reminds me of back in the 1950s when we were coming up with something to control mosquitoes and insects, and we used a product called DDT. 5 to 10 years later, we decided that maybe we should do some more health studies on this, that the initial ones weren't quite up to scale, and lo and behold, we're still suffering from the effects of the mass distribution of DDT at that point in time. I think if we've learned a lesson from that is that let's put the appropriate science in place before we jump at it. I agree with you fully, Don. There's no question that our energy is going to come from different sources than petroleum products, and probably from nuclear products. And going forward, is it going to be wind? I don't think it will be. I think that this is just a stepping stone of getting there, but we better make sure that the stone isn't too slippery that we fall right off of it before we get on to the next progression in this green energy. Okay? There's no other comments, then I'd like to go ahead, call the question then on this motion, moved by Bell and seconded by Thompson. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. All right. Next one, Mark. I believe it's on the committee of the whole recommended.
Yeah, I did, knowing the committee of the whole defeated it, I think it was 6-1. I did word the resolution in the negative, which isn't, I don't typically do. However, if the mover and seconder are willing to entertain it with does hereby support and put it in that positive, and then whether or not you support it, defeat or carry.
Yes.
Can I be a little more specific? Yes, we want it amended?
You want hereby support.
Okay. Well, you're the mover. I don't know why you didn't do it.
So hereby supports. It's great, hereby supports the. Yeah. I just wasn't sure if I was going to get a mover and seconder if I did that.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any questions or comments? We had a very robust discussion of this at Committee of the Whole. Need any more? I will introduce the motion then. It was moved by John Eccles and seconded by Don B. Marshall. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the draft Grey County Smoke-Free Municipal Spaces Bylaw as attached to the April 16th, 2014 letter from the Grey County Clerk's Department.
Mayor, I request a recorded vote.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on this? I can, if I could, I'll say that I won't be supporting this again. One of the reasons is certainly the enforcement and the overall direction that I find it being piecemeal, and that it's part of a provincial legislation and probably federal legislation when it comes to the sale of tobacco products. The other aspect of it is we know from private industry that when you designate spaces for smoking, all of a sudden it's become almost mandatory or legislated that you have an area to be covered and looked after in that. At our long-term care homes, we have areas outside for the residents that are designated, and now you have to build another facility or section that is going to be not 3 meters or 10 or 6 meters, but will have to comply to this as being 9 meters. And the adherence that we've seen to the resolution already of being 3 meters away from the door is being questioned terribly as well, with the lack of enforcement or the inability to enforce that at the way we have it now. So for those reasons and a dozen other ones, I just can't support this at this point in time. Carol?
I just want to point out the resolution that's on the table does not mirror the one that we had at Committee of the Whole, because that went on to say contingent upon enforcement being solely the responsibility of the Grey Bruce Health Unit. But because it was written in the first place like in the negative, that wasn't in there. But
Very good. The mover and seconder, you're suggesting to amend it to add?
well, I'm just saying it doesn't mirror that. I think it's a foregone conclusion how the vote's going to go to be. But
Is there a way you can word that, Mark, that
Yeah, I would add it if the second.
mover and seconder fine with that? Yes, I hear that. It would be. Of mirroring the Committee of the Whole resolution. Is council fine with Mark wordsmithing that, to have that there? In the time of not waiting here for 5 minutes? Support the proposed Grey County Municipal Services Bylaw contingent upon enforcement being solely the responsibility of the Grey Bruce Health Unit. That would be added in there as well too. And the Committee of the Whole, that was turned down on a recorded vote. Any other questions? So we've got this just to give the confirmation from council as to what direction the municipality of West Grey is going. Okay? No other questions or comments, so I'll ask Mark, can you take the vote?
Deputy Mayor Bell,
No.
Councillor Eccles,
No.
Mayor Eccles,
No.
Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Mollison, Councillor Rapke, Councillor Thompson.
No.
So I can declare the vote, the motion defeated, 7-1. Deputy Mayor Bell and myself will probably have some indication as to what the rest of the municipalities in Grey County, because this is one of the ones that needs a, what's the wording, triple majority. I knew it was three. I was going to say three-part, but it's not in harmony. It's a triple majority. Okay. All right. Moving on, Mark. Any questions of Mark at this point in time? Seeing none, then we'll move down to bylaws. And going into bylaws, we have two. One is adoption of the estimates and sums required. As Kerry said, we passed it at the last one, and then there was a very slight change from the province on the education. So from an administrative standpoint, we can get out to that sixth number past the decimal point, so we've got it right. Instead of being a 0, we can put it in as a 5 onto that. Okay. So that's bylaw number 39. It was moved by Rob Thompson and seconded by John Eccles. Be it resolved that bylaw number 39, 2014, being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the estimates of all sums required during the year, to strike the tax rate and to provide for payment thereof for the year 2014, rescinds bylaw number 36, 2014. Be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Okay. The next one is a bylaw that come forward from the Committee of the Whole when we were discussing fees and charges. Of adjusting some of the fees predominantly at our recreation facilities around the concern from ice rentals. So this is bylaw number 40. Before I introduce it, Carol.
I was having a discussion with Tom on the Newstead Arena. We are limiting a maximum of 3 hours use of the floor, the arena floor, at $53 an hour or $95 with heaters, and then after that full time. And Tom was saying he really doesn't see the need of that. For instance, we have just right now we have a request for a 4-hour rental for roller skating on a Saturday night. Well, they would rent it for 4 hours, but if they have to pay the full amount for that extra hour, you're going to lose that. And Tom said really he doesn't see the need of limiting it there to over 3 hours paying the full rate. That's just an example, but you know, you might lose the whole thing. You're certainly only going to get 3 hours. You're not going to get that 4th hour. So I'm wondering if we should adjust that maybe to, well, even over 6 hours or something. Like if somebody's having, or 5 hours, whatever, somebody might want it for like 8 to 12 or, you know, 1 to 5 or something like that. And it really makes no difference, you know, if it's open for an extra hour, you're getting your extra money, but it's not costing us anymore except the lights.
So do you want to make a suggestion, Carol, on that before we introduce it, that the hourly rate at Newstead goes to...
Stays at what, sir? But maximum...
Stays with the number, but go to the change the maximum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess why do we need a maximum? Like once they reach the 580, that would be so much an hour to a maximum of 580, 580.
I guess then it comes around to the question of what is 1 day's rental? Is that 8 hours, or is that 12 hours, or is it 24?
Well, it's certainly from morning till early morning till late night. I mean, you get an auction in there, and you know,
Well, we've got that in where they have the night before where they're putting stuff in on the floor and then have it for the full day.
I mean, or just make it 4 or 5 hours if you want to. Like, for instance, the auction coming in the night before, if they're paying by the hour to set up.
What's the feeling, John?
Normandy Arena Hall is $315. That's for the day. Is that right?
Norman, the hall?
Normandy Arena Hall, $315. And then we go down below $125 an hour.
No, I'm talking about the Newstead Arena floor here.
Oh, the Newstead, sorry.
Yeah, Newstead Arena floor.
I'll go the other way. Because the way I was looking at it, 5 hours, you'd be up to the total amount anyways on the...
Well, the full arena floor rental is about five.
Oh, there we go.
580.
580.
Well, that's,
10.
it's better over 10, about 10 and a half hours.
Well, I think if you've got, the whole thing is, once you get over that 4 hours, you know, like the craft show, you know, when they start setting up about 7:30, give or take, and you've got people in there
Till
by
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, give or take, they're out. You know, if you went on an hourly rate, it's 10 hours, so you're better off going as 10 hours, but then you've got staff that's another couple of hours on both ends and cleanup, and so it's a full day rate. I would say, you know, basically anything I'm thinking over a half day should be, you know, you can go to an hourly rate for a few, but
Right, so what would you say, 5 or 6 hours max?
I would think 5 hours max.
5?
Yeah.
Okay, because that would be better. Thanks.
5 hours. Because the math starts to work out about 5 hours anyways.
Yeah.
I think that would take care of the situations that come up.
Yep.
Good, thanks.
Okay. All right. With that little, so we've amended kind of the hours in there. It's just the hourly rental of the Newstead Arena from 3 to 5. Good with that little amendment? Okay, I have a motion moved by Mark Rapkin and seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that bylaw number 40, 2014, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for certain services provided by the Municipality of West Grey, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, passed as amended, and numbered, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. That's it for bylaws, Mark. New business. New business. Addendums, notice of motion or direct motion. Oh, sorry, we do have new business. Go ahead, Mark.
I did receive an email via Councillor Thompson from Ralph Clark concerning the Vickers Park Music Concert Series. They're looking to have their group covered for insurance purposes. So I do have an email, maybe you'd like to take a few minutes to read.
All right, so we'll take a minute to garner this information from Mr. Clark. Yeah, well, that's what I think that's what it would be. Get something from JLT. Councillor Lawrence, Carol?
Thank you. I would see it a better solution if that committee was named as a committee of council rather than coming as a subcommittee under the rec board. That would just be my thought on that. I can understand their concern.
Yeah, if we've, more and more, as we watch more American television, we become more American
Yeah, very much so.
litigious. What I was wondering, would it behoove us to ask staff to contact our insurance carrier, JLT, and get something around them? And bring it back for the next council meeting. Our next committee of the whole meeting's not until the end of May, and then council meeting, and they may want to start some of these sessions even before that time, or are they looking at just June 15th still? Okay, well, let us get in contact with our insurer, able to look after that and bring back some information for us on what would be the best solution. Carol?
I think it's important to point out to the insurers as well that it is on municipal property. It doesn't move around. It's held on municipal property. And I guess authorized or supported by the municipality. So.
Yeah, certainly supported by us. Rob?
Yeah, I was just going to add, when I had conversation with Mr. Clark last week about this, I don't recall our conversation. We had him and I last year about it, but anyways, he refreshed my memory. But I guess initially when this program started on the Sunday nights for the seniors, that part of it was under the homecoming committee, so they were covered. And I was talking to Carrie the next day, and I guess we never did anything last year, the year before, in regards after homecoming to cover their concerns, I suppose. So I guess I suggested at the time last year is if they could maybe follow under the rec committee and expand the rec committee events and so on. But and Carrie even suggested maybe we could put them down as a committee council, and it's just the two members that are in charge of it, and then they bring in musicians for the events. So, and it is dated June 15th to August 31st. So, yeah, either way is fine.
Okay, let us do a little bit of research, and I think I'm feeling that there is some support for this, but just finding out which avenue is the best way to go to supply that for them. One other thing under new business, we had a delegation here this morning that was, and I believe it was in the miscellaneous correspondence, the community living was looking for a proclamation for May to be declared by the Municipality of West Grey as Community Living Month, and also an opportunity for a couple of days to fly their flag on at the municipal office here, which we've done for other organizations on a request basis. Some we've allowed and some we haven't, so could we bring that in? And Mark, what would be the best? Bring this as a direct motion? Okay. Any other discussion on that as far as new business goes? No? Okay, then, any other new business, Mark? No. So we have addendums, notice of motion or direct motion. I'd like to introduce the one for the declaration from Community Living, their proclamation, and we have the two bylaw agreement. One is on the rental of the municipal property, and the second one is on the gas tax agreement to accept the funds. There's a new funding mechanism formula that they probably wanted it done last Thursday or Friday, but we'll deal with our time frames of how we can get it done. Carol?
Can we check with Ken and see if he had a chance to ascertain about the air conditioning? Rona?
Yep, before we get going with it, Mark?
Yeah, Kerry did provide some amendments to the pay amounts in section 5.1 and 5.4. Ken isn't available at the moment, but I would, if council gives direction to delete that provision, if air conditioning isn't provided, we will do that in the agreement.
I think that would be good.
Yep.
Okay. I'll need a 2/3 majority to introduce the 3 direct motions. All those in favor of introducing the direct motions? Any opposed? Okay. None were opposed. We have the required amount to introduce the 3 motions. Oh, excuse me. Yep, excuse me. So I have a motion moved by Don B. Marshall and seconded by John Eccles. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Garry hereby declares May as Community Living Month and raises their flag to encourage community living Hanover and area and the citizens of West Garry to embrace the diversity of our communities and continue fostering new opportunities for individuals who have developmental disabilities so that all residents have the opportunity to participate and live full, meaningful lives. Any questions or comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. The second one is a bylaw dealing with the Ontario Elections and Electoral Officer on renting municipal property. I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence and seconded by Mark Rapke. Be it resolved that bylaw number 41, 2014, being a bylaw to sign a lease agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and the right of Ontario as represented by the Chief Electoral Officer and the Municipality of West Garry, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and the CEO, Deputy Clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation and be engrossed in the bylaw book. And Mark, the 2 things that were of concern: one, the air conditioning has been dealt with, but we don't believe it is available, so we'll stroke that out. If it is available, I guess we can make it available to them, but on our terms, not theirs. And the second one was the number for the total rent. I believe was in at 24 something. It has been recalculated and understood now it's at 33.90. Okay, so those are the 2 amendments that are in that bylaw. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. The second one is to enter into an agreement to accept the gas tax between AMO, who looks after the transfer of the federal gas tax funds. I have a motion moved by John A. Bell and seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 42, 2014, being a bylaw to enter into a municipal funding agreement between the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario and the Municipality of West Garry respecting the transfer of federal gas tax funds, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and the CEO, Deputy Clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this bylaw? The one thing that it does do is our funding will drop a little bit. The formula changes. Larry, do you know exactly from 2013 to 2014? Is it $20,000?
Approximately $20,000, that's correct, from 370 down to 350 and change.
Yeah. But still and just the way that the formula has changed slightly, we poor rural residents get stuck again by those in Ottawa. But I've got to say, it is a sustainable and secure funding for, I believe it is, this is another 5-year agreement?
I believe so, Your Worship, and also there will be increments after the first 2 years, so year 3, 4, and 5, we will see an increase.
Increase as well, too. So it's stable funding, transfer of that money. And appreciation to the federal government for establishing that on us. Just like to say, we need a little more. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. Public notices. That's got to bring us down to close to that. Is any closed session, Mark? No? All right. Question, Larry?
Your Worship, at Committee of the Whole, I was asked to bring back some information in regards to a property matter, but we're still waiting for some additional information. I'll report back at a forthcoming meeting.
Very good. So we are working on that and getting a little bit more legal opinion and ground. Question period. Any questions from the audience? It's very limited today out there, Adam. Municipal Act notices, I don't believe we have any, Mark. Adjournment. Councillor Mollison, you're still there. Number 20, Dave moves that we adjourn. I'll accept that. We stand adjourned until the call of the mayor or until our next meeting in May. Thank you.